I'm going to show you how to make a multiple velocity drum kit in Ableton using all stock plugins. If you've ever used or seen any of the toontrack products like the Easy Drummer, it's that kind of vibe. I'll show you the pumpkin drum kit that I've just finished as an example, where I recorded lots of hits and stabs on a pumpkin. So in this kit I use 3 microphones. I use a condenser mic, which is capturing more of the thud, down-out mic, which is cleaner, more top-end transients, and a room mic, which is just obviously picking up the reverb of the room. And it's that mic that gives a lot of these sounds the character. For every hit, there are these 3 microphones. And for each one of these microphones, I've captured, in this instance, 6 different sounds. So there are 6 condenser microphone hits, 6 down-out microphone hits, and 6 room mic hits that are all being triggered through one click. So if we go down to here, these are all the different hits that I've got in this pack. So these are triggered at different points on the velocity. So if I play this now, you can see what it's doing. Here's the velocity of these points. This little blue icon here is what it's playing. And this would sound very different if I just altered the volume, because that's what the velocity is normally doing on the actual sampler. And now within this drum rack, because the way I've set it up, I can, using these macros, just use the condenser mic, just use the down-out mic, so on, alter the delays and the sustain. And these are all controlling every single sample. And this does take time, because you have to go through, right click on the attack, map it to a macro within this instrument rack. And this instrument rack is on each of these. And then you have to map this to like the global one. But once you've done all that, you're a very versatile instrument that you can effectively play. I've gone one step further than just the drum rack, and I have a low pass filter, and on this recent one I've put a drum bus, Ableton drum bus, and a saturator at the very, very end, which you can affect every sound with. And once you've filled out all of these hits with the various things, you have a pretty cool sounding instrument. And obviously these are all triggering different samples based on the velocity. Pretty cool, right? Now there are things that I forgot and I remembered again while making this kit that would have saved me time. So first of all, we'll record the samples. We'll just do a simple clap for this, just to make things easy. We'll do 4. See if they're different enough. Right. And now something that I learned, when you're exporting all these sounds, you don't want this sample to be too short. If you're just cropping the hits like this, sometimes Ableton will just export no sound. There'll be no data. So always make them larger. Even if your hits are this big, export something larger. So you just have to click here, and I shift click to select more than the area. You trim the start and the end. I like to fade these out and fade out the in slightly, so there's no clicks. So after trimming the front and the back, just Control J or Command J just to consolidate, or you can right click and consolidate there. So we can go through and just do these 4 hits. Before you export these sounds, you can also go in and modify them slightly if you would like. If you like all your samples to be, slightly boomier, just go in and put the drum bus on, boom, crunch, and you can process these sounds before they get exported. If you have any noise reduction plugins, it's also good to put them on here. And when you're exporting these, if you think about the way the velocity information works, it goes from 1 to 127, and 1 is the quietest that you want. So export these with the quietest first. It might be a better idea to play them in reverse. So, you know, work your way up from quiet to loud. So now we'll rename the sounds, and the more samples that you're using, the better it is to have some kind of naming convention, because it does get confusing pretty quick. So we'll do a 2 mic kit. I'll duplicate these and we'll just pretend. I'll process them a little more. So we're going to call it kit 1, you know, clap 1, this is the sound, and then we'll use the microphone that we used. So we'll use mic 1, and we'll just call this 1, which I'm going to go as the quiet 1. I'll just copy and paste these, rename. If you can find any kind of shortcuts while you're doing this, it will save you a lot of time, because it gets quite insufferable sometimes. Obviously, Control R to rename things. Right, now I have those 4. At this point I would have the other microphone where I recorded at the same time, and also color code them so we don't get confused. So we'll pretend that these sets of sounds were recorded with a different microphone at the same time. We'll pretend that this was the room mic, it was a little further away, with lots of reverb on and maybe a bit more drive. Alright, freeze the track and flatten. So they're now baked in. I'm just going to rename these with the other microphone. So this is microphone 2. Right, now we're going to export each one of these into a folder. So you want to mute the other sound, shortcuts again being your friend, Control-Shift-R to render, and then you want to save these. You want to save them as the file name. So let's paste it. I have clap mic 1, mic sound 1. And we want to go in and do this for each sound. I got quite proficient at doing this over the last few days with the Pumpkin drum kit. So now I'll go into the sound, and now we're on mic 2, clap 1, mic 2, sound 1. I've opened the folder here, if you can't see. Click on add folder, go to where you just export them to, and they're all here as well. Right, so now we're going to open up a MIDI track, right click MIDI track, and go into instruments, and we're going to drag in a drum rack. And within this drum rack, I'm going to drag a instrument rack onto the hit, and then put another instrument rack into here. If you click on these buttons, you'll get all the macros and everything. So we'll rename this. This is clap 1. I'm just doing this so it all makes sense in your head as well. So we're going to rename this one microphone 1. And we're going to put another one in here as well. We can just duplicate it. And this one is going to be microphone 2. So within microphone 1, click on there, and on this instrument rack we're going to drag in all our microphone 1 sounds. Yep, make sure they go quiet to loud, which they should do, naming them the way I told you to do, from 1 to 1 being the quietest. Again, same as mic 2, and we'll drag the microphone 2 samples onto there. So now when I play this note, it's going to trigger all the samples. Up here you can see the velocity sections. So on each of the microphone, you can right click on here and click on distribute ranges equally. So now it's not going to play them all at once, but it will play them dependent on the velocity, much like I showed you on the Pumpkin kit. So now if we drag 2, 3, 4, and then guess where these are. There you go. And now it's working. Now it depends on how you would like to be able to control this. The more work you put in now, the easier it is to manipulate in general. So let's say that I want to do the transport, which is the pitch. So I'm going to go on each of these sounds, go to the controls. I'm going to right click on here, macro 1, transpose. So I'm going to do this for each sound. This does take time. If there's any way that you know that you can copy macros across sounds, let me know, because it would help. Go to the other microphone, do the same thing, like so. And now with it here, we can go and put it to the instrument rack, this one. And now this will control both microphones, both instances. So if you want to control anything on these samplers, follow the same procedure. Now if you want to control things outside of these, like I was showing you on the filters and the saturators, you want to go in this drum rack here. So we want to go to the end, and we want to be putting them in this section. Saturator. Like this. Right click, macro 1. And it's here. So I like to have most of the controls, mainly the attack decay, sustain release, and the pitch. You can also control the microphone things, like the volume and the panning as well. So if I'm going to add the panning, say to this macro 2, right click, macro 2. And you have to rename some of these. Pan. So now I have this sound linked with the pitch and the panning of this individual sound that we've made. So if I will now have another sound, the best thing to do is to copy this, and then I will delete the samples that you had in both the microphone 1 and microphone 2. 1 to 4. 1 to 4. No, these are going to play the same sound, but you get the point. Distribute ranges equally. So now the macros you've lost, and you're going to have to put them in again. And now, if I want to control the macros of both of them sounds at once, so I'm no longer just altering the pitch of one sound but all the sounds, we can just go in here and add this to the drum rack macros. So now this controls both sounds. Now I like to set it up like this, and then as I'm working with these things, if I want different pitches, I just go into those sounds and unmap this macro here. And it's easier to work like that, I think, than having to macro them, you know, and spoil the flow of making something. With the pans, it's a little different. I do like to have control of these individually to begin with. That's pretty much it. I hope this was useful. As you can see, there are lots of variables and things you can control. The main thing is to get interesting samples to begin with. Record with your phone and a microphone just to get those two different sounds, place them in different parts of the room, place things over the microphones to alter the way that they interpret sound, all those things. If you know any other ways of controlling macros, or you see any shortcuts that I've missed, let me know and let everyone else know in the comments below.